All right, April 15. I'm a little bit late because stream key didn't work. I'm Jarrin Jackson, and I love America. Thank you for tuning in. Today is going to be a wham bam thank you ma'am edition called First Principles. What are your first principles? What are other people's first principles? Whenever you think about stuff, whenever you make decisions, what are those? That's what this one's going to be about. I'm going to be applying that into a couple different things, a couple different news stories coming out. But before any of that, my bias, as usual, is I am a Bible-believing Christian. The Bible's the Word of God. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation. The death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the only way to go to heaven. I'm a constitutional defending. We'll be weaving that in today. Patriotic, Rush baby, Lynn Wood endorsed, Trump supporter. All of those things are true. We're going to be speaking about a couple different things. We're going to have some laughs, a couple. Then we're going to do a update. I have a gazillion things to talk about in the update. Just a lot of things over the last 24 hours seem to be bombarding, just here's all this stuff that's coming on. And it's like, whoa. So we're going to be doing a update that captures a lot of that stuff. And then there's going to be two stories that I speak about. Phase one is going to be first principles with respect to law enforcement. Going to be highlighting a video between Dan Bongino and Geraldo Rivera on Sean Hannity's show a couple nights ago or last night. And then phase two is going to be Supreme Court. Democrats are introducing a godless commie bill that says they're going to pack the court. They're going to increase the size of the court. They want to increase the size of the court from 9 to 13. And then they're giving their reasons why. But there's a couple things that I want to point out that makes sense, or I think makes sense, that I want to try to identify for people like you, to see the first principles in action, because part of the danger of the 21st century, part of the chaos of where we are right now, is you have so many people who assert their way of thinking, which is garbage, mostly garbage, by the way, to be true, because so many people think that what they believe is true, but it's not. You have a lot of people trying to combine a lot of untrue things. And so it seems to be the battle rages according to who can best position their talking points, who can best posture their position and make it more palatable to the greatest number of people. Is that right? Is that good? Is that effective? That's what I want to investigate. So we're going to be doing that. So I got a couple laughs. Here is my first laugh as we get... timeout. This one is going to be a quick one because my kids just got back in town from Tennessee, so I'm going to be spending time with them. So I'm not going to do any Q&A tonight. I apologize. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Health and Freedom Festival of America in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Lord willing, I'll meet Lynn Wood, Mike Lindell, General Mike Flynn, a couple other people. But I will not have a broadcast tomorrow. No broadcast tomorrow. You can find the links in the description for all the stuff below. So with that, let's get into some laughs. It's a guy swimming with a mask on. Does he have a snort? I mean, it's just like, that's the type of stuff. That doesn't make sense to me. And then, I was scrolling through the bowels of the internet, Twitter, and I saw this the other day. These are actual tweets and serious people. Like, these are real people not trying to be joking, but it's funny. This is the first one. Some guy named Matt Miller says, I'll just let you read it. So, didn't anticipate the wave of euphoria and emotion that comes with that first shot. Get your vaccine. Best feelings you'll have in a year. This woman, it's the best. Cried a bit with my second. Absolutely teared up with daughter. Got her first. Will be a mess with jab 2. Gratitude. Just gratitude. And then it keeps going. Watch this. Here's another reply. Here's someone else. These are real people, by the way. Donna at 58 Rug Hooker. It does give you a sense of joy and relief to be this, of course. And then lastly, these could go on. There was like hundreds of these, but this person, 5 minutes. Let's just start the timer. Let's just go for 5 minutes. It's just, oh, folks, I am not ready. I am not ready to engage this world. It's so stupid. There's so many people. Nothing makes sense. Let's get to the home update. Let's go. The updates are designed to point out glitches in the matrix, to identify things that just don't make sense. And because they don't make sense, I don't necessarily how to categorize them, so I kind of put them in this update. This one is going to be a round robin, because as I'm looking at my board here on the computer, I've got a million different things that I want to talk about, and I don't know how to link them. Normally I have a linkage, like there's a story arc to it, but I one, couldn't do that, and then two, the stream key was all messed up, which is why I was late today. But I'll do this first one. See, where is it? We'll play this one first.
To debate or anything, but I've just seen obviously the vaccine tab, and teach their own. If you want to get the vaccine, to each your own. But I did just want to make a little note that I received 2 vaccine campaigns paying thousands of dollars to go and get a vaccine, or go and get the vaccine and record it and take a selfie while getting the vaccine. Just gonna throw that out there.
So there you go. There is a person who is an Instagram influencer. She's probably more than a T-list celebrity. But that just makes you go, That's just like, why would they need to do that? It just doesn't make sense to me. Also, this is from Disclosed TV. I'll let you read it. I'm going to beat the algorithms. You guys read your screen. CNBC reported that from the CEO of a company. There you go. So there's that. Then Facebook, this is a couple days ago, but this is still true. Facebook did this. So then you have this from Facebook. And I'll explain how that influences things. But you, of course, have this. And then next week, you have this. So there is a rivalry between the godless commies on the right. Hold on. Let me do this. Let's do the godless commies on the left. And the Christians, the patriots, the America lovers on the right. So there you go. Mike Lindell's going to be doing his thing. I'd like to shake this guy's hand this weekend. I think he's just a great American patriot. He's doing a lot of good stuff, putting his money where his mouth is. He's rivaling Amazon. He's going to start up like a thing called My Store. So pray for this man. This dude is going to really be influential in America moving forward, because he is putting his money where his mouth is, and the guy is doing yeoman's work trying to restructure things. But it's interesting that those two things are popping up. Another thing, in this, again, folks, I don't know how to link these things. I'm just reporting this. This is just like a round robin update. The next one, this was silently published, and I found this yesterday, but it was silently published on Monday. Look at this. Catholic Joe Biden, who supports, who's a Catholic, right? Supposed to support life. He just uses this virus to lift the federal prohibition on Taliban. There you go. There's a Taliban abortions. There it is. Look at that guy. Look at that smile. You'd never know that he's for the systematic elimination of babies in the womb, specifically for people who have skin that doesn't look like his. That's just another interesting thing. Another interesting thing that I learned about today is that Russia, the Russian Navy, is shutting off the Kerch Strait. Kerch Strait, right there in Crimea. That little body of water between Crimea and Russia, Mother Russia. They're shutting it off until October of this year for everybody, unless you're a ship coming to benefit Russia or you are Russian Navy. So that's interesting to me, because this is an escalation of things. And Ukraine, let's be straight with the facts. Ukraine is the place where Hunter Biden, which is Joe Biden's number one advisor, has done a lot of different things. And so this is going on. This is the escalating tensions. Now, remember a couple days ago, whenever I asked everybody on my Telegram channel, when was the last time that we were threatened with a nuclear attack? there's a couple different countries that are now starting to say, well, we want nukes. Ukraine is starting to say, well, we want nukes. If America's not going to do anything about this, then we want nukes. There's a couple other countries in the Middle East saying, well, if America's not going to do stuff, then we need to start having nukes. Now, a couple different things about this. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I see reported. This is what I see going on. Now, what's the explanation for this? The actual explanation could be that they see America being led by Joe Biden as weak. And so people who are our rivals are seeing the opportunity to position themselves to take off chunks of territory to benefit themselves. That is a superficial perspective, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I just think that that would be the best explanation first glance. The second explanation is, depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, there is a trickster, nefarious, Putin is trolling Joe Biden by doing this, trying to get people to focus on Ukraine, trying to get people to focus on everything else. And maybe Putin, he's trying to, force Joe Biden's hand. Obama had his infamous red lines that the world just marched all over. This could be one of those. And then in another downshift, let's go to the windy city of Chicago. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, godless commie, she released this statement about the body camera footage of a 13-year-old kid that was shot on March 29. Now, today's April 15. This happened March 29, and she acknowledges that she's going to release the footage of this little boy being shot. Now, this is tragic. I'm not making fun. I'm not trying to, be mean or anything. This is a really tragic thing. But then she says this.
Parents should ever have a video broadcast widely of their child's last moments. Much less be placed in the terrible situation of losing their child in the first place. Even as our understanding of this incident continues to evolve, this remains a complicated and nuanced story. And we all must proceed with deep empathy and calm. And importantly, peace.
Yeah, so you're going to stress calm and peace, but you're also going to release the body camera footage of police officers shooting a young teenage boy. She knows, and this is my argument. This is just Jarrin's belief. I think she knows exactly what she's doing, and I think she knows that as soon as they release this information, there's people who are primed to, because of monkey think, right? Monkey think race. Now watch yesterday's live stream. If you're imbuing or imputing upon me evil thoughts, don't do that. Stop being a bigot and go back to yesterday and watch the live stream. The live stream from yesterday is talking about how people who have Darwinian presuppositions are looking at today's events. And so if people buy a race narrative, they're necessarily going to fall into the trap of a self-perpetuating hate system based on skin color. I think Lori Lightfoot knows that. I think she is playing her role as a godless commie mayor of a big urban area. And it's also interesting to know that the judge in the George Floyd murder case up there in Minneapolis, what's this guy's name? Chauvin. That case, the judge, so the defense is rested, the prosecution is rested, and the jury is going to start deliberating on Monday. And the judge told the jury, quote, pack your bags, because, I guess they're anticipating being there for a long time. And that court case has gone back and forth. But mark my words, let me be Nostradamus real fast. When that verdict comes out, people will burn things and destroy stuff. Now, you might think, well, Jarrin, that's not much of a prediction. Yeah, of course. Why is that? Why is it that you know that what I'm saying is going to happen? Because this thing is so predictable. Cross-apply here to Lori Lightfoot. Why is she starting to release these things? People, the godless commies, are starting to turn the screws of people who they have focused on skin color. These godless commie mockingbird media have so many people focused on the color of your skin, not being made in the image of God, but me, hey, look at me, I'm a different skin color than you. Oh, I hate you because your skin color is different than mine. Yeah, let's smash this dude. Oh, there's a random business. Let's go steal what we want from it in the name of justice. Justice is always self-serving to those who are trying to make the world their own. And so it's one of those where, I mean, Lori, like, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. Another shift gears. I saw this from the Gateway Pundit a few days ago. Look at this. You can tell she's... Satanic prayer on hating white people included a new prayer book being sold at Target. This is like last week. There is a brilliant mind, clearly a good thinker. And here is a video that kind of explains this a little bit further.
This is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. So there's this prayer book called A Rhythm of Prayer, and one of the prayers is by Dr. Chaniqua Walker Barnes. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong and I'll probably get canceled and called a racist, but anyways. She has a prayer of a weary black woman, and look what she says. Dear God, please help me to hate white people, or at least to want to hate them. At least I want to stop caring about them individually and collectively. My prayer is that you will help me to hate the other white people, you know, the nice ones, the Fox News loving, Trump supporting voters who don't see color. This one's the worst part. Lord, if it be your will, harden my heart. Stop me from striving to see the best in people. Stop me from being hopeful that white people can do and be better. Let me imagine them instead as white hooded robes standing in front of burning crosses. Let me see them as hopelessly unrepentant, reprobate bigots who have blasphemed the Holy Spirit and who need to be handed over to the evil one. Excuse me, what? Critical race theory is demonic.
Absolutely it is, and there's the face of it. There's the face of critical race theory. That face, that person came up with that idea, invoking the idea of the Holy Spirit helping that person to hate white people because they're bigots. This is next level stupid and evil. Not only is it completely against the Bible. I mean, again, you want a scriptural basis. Colossians chapter 3, Paul is writing the church of Colossae. Colossae is a metropolitan area where there's people from all sorts of areas. They speak different languages. They have different class levels. They've got all these different things. Colossians 3 verse, I think it's 10, says Christ is all and in all. And it lists out Scythians, barbarians, rich, poor, Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised. It lists out a bunch of different people, a bunch of different classes, a bunch of different folks that used to have different ways of thinking have now come to the table, have now come to Jesus Christ's table. And that's the brilliant, beautiful thing about Jesus Christ, is that whenever you come to the cross, you recognize that, man, I'm a sinner, and that I don't look at someone else and I don't judge them before I recognize the fact that I need God's grace too. This way of thinking is robbing everyone of that perspective. This perspective is assuming that your skin color determines the morality, the rightness of your perspective, which is just evil. It's just absolutely evil. But that's part of our culture. Let me shift again. I'm telling you, this update is just all over the place, and I'm sorry. I want to shift again. I saw this on Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge is one of my go-to places. This is from a guy that writes from Bullion Star. You see that there, bullionstar.com. This is the LBMA, that's the London banking something or else of something, acknowledges buying frenzy in silver market and silver shortage fears. The concept here, and I've talked about currency a little bit, and today's not going to be that live stream, maybe next week. But the idea is that a lot of these big banks, a lot of these big central banks, and these are ones owned by the Rothschilds, right? These are the Satanists. These are the pedophiles. Hey, hold on. Jarrin, how do you know? How do you know that Satan has so much influence in the world? How do I know that? Well, let me read what I wrote on Telegram the other day, and you can find me at the Telegram in the description below. I want to read this because I don't know. I thought it was written. I am biased, and I thought I was written well. I published this. I can't see what day, but okay, so this is what I wrote on Telegram. It says, Jesus called Satan, quote, the prince of this world, John 12:31. How, again, are we to quickly dismiss reports of Satan worshipers being in powerful positions in this world as conspiracies? Is Jesus a liar, or is Satan? If the Bible is true, it is, then it follows that Satan's influence is global. If the Bible is false, it's not, then Satan worship must exist, but it certainly isn't a big deal. And if the Bible is true, it is, and Satan was able to deceive Eve, he did, who lived with the infinite creator God in the garden, to doubt the Alpha and Omega's one restriction, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then it follows that Satan is capable of deceiving multiple billions of people who choose to suppress evidence of God's existence. Now, multiply that capability by a gazillion. We are in a spiritual war for people's souls. Eternity is on the line. The key terrain is in the mind, and only the gospel of Jesus Christ can renew a mind and make a person new. Amen. Whoever wrote that was really smart. No, but I mean, the idea is that there's a lot of people who Satan's kingdom is global. The Rothschilds, I firmly believe, are part of it. Now, with that, this bullionstar.com is acknowledging that there's a buying frenzy in silver market and silver shortage fears. So, when currencies were taken off the gold standard, this is what happened. And you can get this graph. I need to figure out where I got this. But this graph is acknowledging when the United States got off the gold standard in 1972. So the yellow line shows the productivity. The red line shows the compensation. So we have had a little bit, increase in compensation since 1948, and you can figure out what happened in 1948. But you have 246% increase in productivity. So people now are more productive than they ever have been. We live in the most productive time in world history. We also have had stagnant wages since 13 years before I was born. That is not a recipe for a good market. Now, you take that silver article right here that acknowledges the finite resource, the finite precious metals of silver, and you add to it an article like this saying that the United States wants, and this is from CoinDesk, the United States wants to start sanctioning crypto addresses linked to Russian election fraud scheme. So first of all, this is like the Russia hoax overlaid on top of crypto. So this is where the godless commies are going. The godless commies control the central banks. The central banks tell everyone that they have precious metals on hand, but the godless commies don't actually have precious metals on hand. What they do is they have a fiat currency that robs people of their purchase power. You see that right now. You probably aren't getting paid more, but because the price of gasoline has gone up, that price increase functions as a tax. That tax is actually a method of wealth redistribution. Because if you have to drive to work, you have to continue to consume gasoline. So who takes the extra money from the gasoline today versus what the price was 3 months ago? Someone who's involved in that system. Now, if you force the entire world to be on your system, the US dollar, and you own the US dollar because the US dollar is a Federal Reserve note, and the Federal Reserve is a private bank owned by the Rothschilds family, then you understand that whoever owns the dollars are able to influence everything else. They're also able to redistribute income, redistribute wealth without ever passing a law, without ever having to go through the government. They just do it because they own so much. And so that's the point of this graphic. Now get back to the silver. Why is it a big deal that the London, and I need to figure out what that acronym is, the LBMA. Let me look that up right now. LBMA, London. It's the LBMA. Come on, where are you? It's the London Bullion Market. That's what it is. It's the London Bullion Market Association. That's what the LBMA is, the London Bullion Market Association. And it's interesting that this article is here because it doesn't normally, the LBMA doesn't normally write about silver, certainly doesn't write about shortages. And so if you look that article up and you go to read it, the purpose of that article is to point out the fact that central banks are buying physical precious metals. Well, they're buying physical precious metals because they have to shore up those accounts. I've covered this in the past where if central banks believe that there's going to be disturbances or instability in currency, what they do is they start to buy actual physical precious metals. And that's what's happening here. That is cross-applied, or that links with the U.S. government, who is starting to put sanctions on those people who have crypto. That means that the U.S. government right meow does not control Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin or anybody else. The U.S. government doesn't control that. But by sanctioning people, that's its attempt. And the fig leaf is the Russia hoax. The fig leaf is you guys interfered in the election, therefore we get to sanction you. Now with that, let's shift again to Great Britain. There are Christians uniting. This is Unity News Network. Christians are uniting. Look at that hair. Look at that hair. It's like the abominable snowman on that old school reindeer show that you see around Christmas time. The Prime Minister is under pressure from hundreds of Christian leaders not to impose the passports, Daisy passports, to British society. So that's good. But then you also take that and you think about, will that have an effect? Probably. And then you look at other places. Look at this. In mid-March, look down there. Axios is reporting the Major League Baseball's net favorability rating among Republicans, I can't even read, was at 47%. And now it's to 12. Same thing for NFL, or way below NFL and NHL. Go woke, go broke. I also saw somewhere today where Coke, the CEO of Coke, who is a British citizen and not an American citizen, the CEO said a couple of weeks ago, hey, Georgia, you guys suck. Well, American citizens have basically said, you can go pound sand, bro. We ain't buying your stuff no mo. So anyway, this guy, Jesse Kelly at Jesse Kelly DC, pro tip, every woke corporation in America goes bankrupt tomorrow if you actually use your silent majority power and spend your time dollars elsewhere. They keep spitting in your face because they think you won't do it. Prove them wrong. That is a good perspective on Live Local. Again, Live Local is May 8 in Claremore. If you've signed up, you can come. I'm going to push out information this evening to the people who have signed up. If you haven't signed up, the tickets are $0. So whenever I say they're sold out, no one bought anything. I'm going to cater for 100. I'm going to have chairs for 100. If people show up and they don't have tickets, I'm not going to turn you away. But at the same time, if someone comes with a ticket and someone doesn't come and doesn't have a ticket, I'm going to say the guy with the ticket, the person with the ticket needs to be there. But I'm not going to be stingy. So if you're trying to get your way into that, now if this turns out to be a bazillion people are trying to come, I do not bear responsibility because I limited it to 100 while at the same time I don't want to tell people they can't come. So that is me trying to help people while at the same time recognizing the limitation of 100. And right now I can tell there's probably 2 or 3 people that are like, I'm going to go and sneak in. Oh yeah, roger that. Go for it. But what happens whenever there's 400 of you that think you can just kind of sneak in? That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I'll stream it. I don't know about the internet. I will record it. I will chop it up to present it later. I want to be very careful about what I put online, specifically when I start talking about tactics, because the government gets kind of... That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to talk about that more, and don't ask me. When people are like, you need to publish stuff about tactics. No, I don't. Anyway, the last thing on this update, I got to get going, is James O'Keefe was suspended on Twitter today, which is interesting because James O'Keefe over the last couple days has been doing stuff against CNN. Twitter came out with this response to James O'Keefe saying, your account has been permanently suspended for violating the Twitter rules, specifically fake accounts. You cannot register, create fake and misleading accounts. So Twitter is saying that they suspended James O'Keefe, millennial from Project Veritas, the guy that does all these gotcha videos exposing the fakeness and the hypocrisy of all the godless commies. Twitter's accusing O'Keefe of having fake accounts, which O'Keefe came back and he said, hey, you can't say that. So this is O'Keefe on Telegram. He says, I am suing Twitter for defamation because they said I, James O'Keefe, quote, operated fake accounts. This is false. This is defamatory or defamatory if you're from British. And they will pay. Section 230 may have protected them before, but it will not protect them from me. The complaint will be filed Monday. Please follow on Telegram. The reason why I'm putting this out is think about the other things that are going on. You have the British You have Christians in Great Britain telling the Prime Minister, we don't want your Daisy passports. You have people here, patriots, starting to use their silent majority purchase power, their times and their dollars elsewhere. Go away from godless commies. Live local. Live local. And then you got O'Keefe, who's starting to go after people, and I would not be surprised if this turns into a class action lawsuit. So I think there's a lot of power there, and that's really interesting. So that's a big fat update. Let's get rolling. Let's go to phase 1 and talk about first principles. All right, I want to play this video of Dan Bongino versus Geraldo Rivera. It's spiced up, but it's funny. Props to Bongino. We'll unpack afterwards. Watch this.
Solution to the problem. Cops wear their main weapon, their 9mm usually these days, on their dominant hand, so say your right hand. So this is the hand that has the gun. The taser is on the left hand, your secondary hand. So they're taught, use the taser in non-lethal situations. My suggestion is reverse it. Make the taser the first weapon of choice for a cop. Put the taser on the dominant hand and the 9mm on the secondary hand.
I don't even know how to respond to that because I like him to just say these things because they're so easy to refute, but he cannot stop talking when I do. But getting to his first point, there's a big difference between reporting on a baseball game and playing it, Geraldo. You never wore a badge, period. Not interested in your reporting on it because reporters deal with facts. And you brought the race card into it the other night when we had this debate. If you put the firearm on the other side, the firearm, you would probably have to cross-draw it because you'd want to fire with your dominant hand, which if you were ever a cop, you'd know that, but you reported on being policing. What's the problem with a cross-draw? The problem is when you're tackled and put on the ground, the weapon's more accessible to the bad guy than it is to you. But because you've never done policing, never done control tactics, but you've reported on it, you wouldn't know any of that. So maybe a little bit of humble pie, back off, stop telling everyone about your great reporting, deal with facts, and realize you don't know what you think you know, you just know what you think you reported on. Those are two separate things. I don't pretend to be a journalist, I'm an opinion maker. Stop pretending to be a cop.
Geraldo.
You just want to see the country burn. That's it.
I want to see the country burn. You son of a bitch. I want to see the country burn. You punk. You're nothing but a punk.
Yeah.
You're a punk, Bongino. You're a punk.
You wouldn't tell me that to my face.
Snoop Dogg, yeah, Snoop Dogg. Yeah, hey, when you got a SmackDown, you gotta say, hey, that's good. Of course, Sean Hannity again is playing the rivalrous aspect, which it's entertaining, so I like it. Think about what Dan Bongino is saying. This is principium. This is first principles. The Latin is principium. First principles is the concept. It's the idea of where does your brain, where does your mind, where does the idea go to? What's the beginning, the origin of the thing that you're talking about? If we're speaking about law enforcement, Dan Bongino is coming from a former cop. He's coming from, I think he was Secret Service at one point. I don't remember. But he's coming at this perspective, at this topic from a person with experience. And so that's why whenever I say, go to war, godless commies, shoot them in the face, I've been to combat. I've shot people, well, not in the face, technically. Well, I don't know if it was my bullet, but people have been shot in the face and I was there pulling triggers. But that's happened. And so I've been in combat situations. And so for me, it's easy to talk about combat because I've actually been there. It's an experience of mine. So whenever other people are talking about fighting, it's kind of like, what have you done? Anyway. So Bongino comes at this with experience. Geraldo Rivera, who's been in the game for a long time, has not done this as experience. And this is where I'm talking about their principium, their foundation, their origin. When Bongino talks about law enforcement, he's actually speaking from experience. When Geraldo Rivera is talking about law enforcement, he's speaking about it from what? Perspective, feeling, his bleeding heart. Now, you can gauge which one is more effective, but understand that our culture verifies and validates feeling and emotion and opinion more than it does experience. We've now shifted from a culture of competence to a culture of opinion. And because we have a culture of opinion, the first principles no longer matter because it's up to you. You get to choose your own foundation. And that's a very dangerous perspective, not only from the specifics of the law enforcement, because the cross draw is dangerous. I want to take issue with Bongino. You don't draw with your dominant hand. You draw with the hand that's going to allow you to acquire that sight picture. So I'm left eye dominant, but right hand dominant, right? Left eye dominant, but left hand dominant. Left eye dominant, right hand dominant, okay? So I have cross dominant eye to hand. And so for me, if I draw from the right, I'm actually having to tilt the firearm a little bit to get the sight picture on my left eye. I don't like to draw with my left hand because my left is not dominant hand. So there's a training issue there, and that's how you mitigate it. You mitigate it through repetition, like all things. This, of course, is going back to the female cop that, what was her name? Kim Potter. Kim Potter, a couple days ago, shot a guy named Dante Wright up in Minneapolis. This is what, a lot of the race wars have been stirring up about. And the idea was that her pistol, her firearm, the thing that could kill people was on the right, but the taser was on the left. And so Geraldo Rivera is like, well, just switch them. So the first principle, the thing I wanted to highlight here is Geraldo Rivera speaking to a culture based on opinion and having opinion as their first principle, is speaking to people who will understand, and it will make sense to people that you should just switch them because we don't want to kill anybody, especially these racist, white, bigoted cops. We don't want them to kill no more black people because we know all white cops kill all black people. It's like if you're a cop and you're white and you're kind of just sitting there chilling in your car eating a donut, it's typical, cliche, no offense, but let's just go with it. White cop sitting in his car, oh, donut, this is delicious. Oh, black guy. Oh. It's just like that's what people believe is actually happening. It's not what's happening. Not at all. But let's just go with that. That is what the culture believes through propagandizement, through people who believe through repetition that is so. It doesn't make it so. It just makes it that that's what they believe. But Rivera's foundation is that of being an opinion. And so if your foundation is based on opinion, then it follows that if someone says something stupid that's not practical, like, let me switch the sides of the firearm so I have to cross draw. Not only does that take more time, I'm not only reaching across my body, but like Bongino said, if you're in a tussle, that assailant is right there, and the firearm actually favors him to draw it instead of you. It's like, I'm going to draw across my body, and now as I'm pulling out this pistol, I'm flagging everything up instead of I just come up and I go straight out, right? It's shooter preference, but it changes the entire dynamic. Bongino's foundation, let's be clear, Bongino's first principle of his perspective is his experience. And in this case, it's more valuable than Rivera's. But let's actually get to the bottom. What is the bottom? Law enforcement. What does that mean? Should we give people the ability to have qualified immunity with loaded rifles or loaded pistols that can kill people? To walk around and patrol around in uniform to potentially do those violent things to those folks? That is a societal question to ask. But from my perspective, I like police. I like people who enforce the laws because that means that there is an authority that we've collectively identified as you have the authority to distribute justice. You have the authority to administer the enforcement of the laws, to impose order. I'm a conservative. What do I conserve? God's order. Part of God's order is not murder, not stealing, not raping, not doing those things. So if our society, being Bible-believing Christian, has set up police officers to be the people who keep the peace and law and enforce the law, then when people break the law, I want them to be punished. I want force to compel them to stop breaking the law. But people don't think like that because they just think, well, all the white people kill all the black people. That is the superficiality of our culture, speaking against the goodness of the concept of law enforcement. Now, that's nothing to say about the legitimacy or the credibility of laws, the efficacy of them, if they work or not. Should a cop have like a bazooka or not? Those are all good conversations to have. But the principium right? The first principle is, are we going to have justice? Yes. So what happens whenever someone has violated another image bearer's rights, image bearer of God's rights? What do? You just let them go? Are we all going to be nice? What if that person just really enjoys raping? That person got a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment out of violating that other person. So to that person's perspective, their opinion, they're good. You can't have that. There has to be a standard. You have to enforce that standard. I want people to speak to first principles from law enforcement because it very quickly identifies garbage ideas and garbage arguments like that of Geraldo Rivera. The sad part is if you showed that clip to the majority of Americans, they would not believe it because they've been propagandized to believe that white cops kill black people. Phase 2. All right. Jerry Nadler, the guy who smells bad, is fat and is, well, he said this. The Democrats have introduced a concept. They've done this. This is from Daily Wire yesterday. Democrats introducing legislation to pack Supreme Court with 4 new justices, reports say. This is from yesterday. This is Jerry Nadler, Representative Jerry Nadler on the steps of the SCOTUS, speaking about that bill.
The overwhelming majority of cases don't get considered by the Supreme Court, which they are entitled to do, and throughout much of our history did. Our predecessors made eminent sense when they pegged the size of the Supreme Court to the number of judicial circuits. As our country has grown, so too to the Supreme Court. 13 justices for 13 circuits is a logical progression, and that is another reason why I'm glad to join my colleagues in introducing the Judiciary Act of 2021 to establish the Supreme Court size as 13. That's a nice number. It's not a nice number. It's a proper number. It matches the number of circuits as it has historically, and it also will enable us to do justice and to rectify the great injustice that was done in packing the court. And some people will say we're packing the court. We're not packing it. We're unpacking it. Senator McConnell and the Republicans packed the court over the last couple of years, as Senator Markey outlined. So this is a reaction to that. It's a necessary step in the evolution of the court, and I'm proud to co-sponsor it.
Isn't it funny that he uses words like evolution? He's speaking to people who believe that evolution is good. That right there is a cross purpose of a word. You see, that's how they smuggle in presuppositions. Oh, he said evolution, science. Oh, it's natural. It's unstoppable. That's the load. That's the power of using those types of words. But think about his first principles. What are his first principles based on that? If we were just to take that video to determine Jerry Nadler's first principles with respect to the court, he makes a population-based argument. Well, as the population grows, so should the Supreme Court. Can we use that to cross-apply for other elements of government? And why is government the solution to justice? Notice how he said we're going to rectify the injustice. Never says what the injustice was. He implies that the injustice was that President Trump got so many picks because President Trump is a racist, and so he's not allowed to put 3 Supreme Court justices on the court. So the thinking that we have to grow the court to 13 because it's a good number, which is celebrated by the occult, by the way. That's why he said it was a good number. Look me up. Look that up, not me up. I don't care about 13, but the occult loves it. Jerry Nadler wants 13 Supreme Court justices because there's 13 districts. Why not just take it by that logic? If you have to have the number of justices match the number of districts, why can't Congress, who, according to the Constitution, Article 1, establishes lower courts, why can't the Congress just take those 13 districts and make them 9? Why, if we're basing arguments on population, why can't every single American be their own Supreme Court justice? If we're going to just base it on population, hey, that baby was born, survived being butchered from the womb, let's make that baby a Supreme Court justice. What are the qualifications? They have to be nominated and approved by the Senate, right? Why can't that baby be a Supreme Court justice? I mean, 3-year-olds are determining, they're judging for themselves what gender they can be. That seems to be a very influential and powerful decision rendered by a 3-year-old with so much, authority. What's it? I think it's the Psalms of the Proverbs that it's like, woe to you whenever women and children are ruling over you. I think it's Psalms 3. I don't know. It's off the top of my head. I don't know. But there's a biblical teaching that it's like, you will be punished by having women and children rule over you. And it's this aspect that whenever men are no longer in their positions, it upsets the order and you get garbage like this. You get people that think differently and they think based on their own standard. His standard is amorphous. You don't know what it is. It's political opportunism. Yes. It's power-based. Yes. But he can't come out and say that. He has to justify it by grasping at straws somewhere. And that's the weakness of his worldview, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It's only what serves him. His first principles serve him. Let me go closer to someone who is on our side, my side. Jim Jordan, who I also have his cell phone number. But Jim Jordan, this is Jim Jordan versus Dr. Fauci. I'm going to unpack this after, but there's a lot of good to this clip. I want to specify something after it, though. Watch.
In your written statement, you say, now is not the time to pull back on masking, physical distancing, and avoiding congregate settings. When is the time? When do Americans get their freedom back? Can you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry. When we get the level of infection in this country low enough that it is not a really high threat.
What is low enough? Give me a number. We had 15 days to slow the spread, turned into 1 year of lost liberty. What metrics, what measures, what has to happen before Americans get their freedoms back?
My message, Congressman Jordan, is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can, to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer a threat. That is when. And I believe when that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? Are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure, what standard, what objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
You're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's obvious.
As a public health thing.
But
I disagree with you on that.
You think the Constitution is suspended during a virus, during a pandemic? It's certainly not.
This will end for sure when we get the level of infection very low. It is now at such a high level, there's a threat again of major surges.
Dr. Fauci, over the last year, Americans' First Amendment rights have been completely attacked. Your right to go to church, your right to assemble, your right to petition your government, freedom of the press, freedom of speech have all been assaulted. For a year now, Americans haven't been able to go to church. Even today, when they go to church, they're limited in the size of worshipers who can meet. Your right to assemble? Oh, my goodness.
Now, a couple different things I want to point out real fast. Supreme Court ruled that California can no longer ban in-home religious services. That's a 5-4 majority, so you are that close to losing that type of ruling. Because John Roberts, pedophile Epstein Island, is ruling with the liberals now, the Galas Commies. Also, the Supreme Court ruled that they really mean what they mean on religious liberties. The government cannot ban, California cannot ban what people do. And so with that, it puts the fact that Democrats are packing the court into perspective. But what I want to do is I want to speak to the first principle of thing. If you go back to what Jim Jordan was saying with Dr. Fauci, they both have they approach the same conversation. They're both talking about masks and lockdowns and pandemics and virus. They approach the same conversation from two different perspectives. This is good in the sense that you get to see the difference between the two. So I want to highlight that difference, and I want to encourage Representative Jordan to improve his argumentation. So the two approaches, let's start with Fauci. Fauci is not a policymaker, though he definitely sets policy because he's in the position as the medical expert to say thus and such, and then people do it. We're going to trust the science. Remember, take the vaccine, right? Like, remember yesterday? So Fauci doesn't set policy, but he sets policy. He functionally sets policy. He sees this issue as a public health issue. So his perspective, whether you agree with it or not, is that public health is his priority. That's also his job. Now, does he believe this in his personal life? I don't know. He could be representing the public position for the job that he's being paid for, or the job that he's been installed. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Though he's done a lot of shady stuff in the past, and he's still doing it right now. But let's assume the decency of his heart. Let's assume good motives, and that he's going to approach this with all professionalism and respect and integrity. But he's coming from this, acknowledging this is a public health issue. So this is public health issue to Fauci. To Jordan, it's a First Amendment issue. It's a religious liberty issue. It's a free speech issue. It's a right to assemble, petition your government issue. So he's balancing the rights. Public health, which is a collective societal concern, versus the individual rights. This is the debate. Individual versus the community, the collective. Dr. Fauci represents the perspective of godless commies, that the individuals don't matter. We're going to say the community's interests trump, no offense, the individuals. Representative Jordan is asking good questions, but I don't like his first principles. The first principles of his questions, asking what is the metric, here's what this means. When Jim Jordan is asking Fauci what the metric is for success, he's accepting the premise that science and metrics and data and numbers and statistics and figures is a credible basis to determine the legitimacy of taking away one's liberty. The First Amendment guarantees you the freedom of speech. Is there a metric? Is there a number? The amount of times you make people mad, the amount of times you take the Lord's name in vain, the number of times that you say Jesus died for your sins. Is there a metric that can be imposed that once you reach that, it nullifies the individual liberty? It nullifies the guarded right, the determined specified right in the Constitution. I disagree with Jim Jordan. Now, you could say on Jordan's perspective that he's talking to a doctor, and the doctor is going to be talking about science and math. And if that's the case, sure. But Jim Jordan's not a scientist. He's a lawyer. He's speaking from the perspective of the law. He is a legislator. Therefore, he is a lawgiver, right? Isaiah 33:22, our God is both our king, our lawgiver, and our judge. That is the basis for our separation of branches. The executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch. Isaiah 33:22, go look it up. In that, the legislature is the lawgivers. They are the ones that write the law. Jim Jordan, though he's an attorney and a wrestling coach, he is a guy that writes law. So from his perspective, he could be a scientist. He could be a lawyer. Doesn't matter. What matters is that he writes the law. If the foundation, if his first principle is metrics, those metrics can be skewed. Remember when I was talking about monkey think? If you have a bias towards whatever, because everyone has a bias, what's to say that your ethics don't reflect what's true? Does Dr. Fauci have the ethics to accurately report the impact of COVID and its death rate to the American people? Does he accurately depict or communicate the effectiveness of mask wearing, though he's wearing a mask with chemistry bottles and stuff? You see the symbol, the virtue signaling? He's willing to wear the mask, and the mask has vials and bottles and a chemistry set on it to make people be like, oh, he's a scientist. Like, that's what he's doing. He's sending the signals just by being there, saying the things that he's saying. But Jim Jordan granted the premise that science and a metric can be used when qualifying the effectiveness or the potential of a God-given right. And I just completely disagree with that, because it's the principle, it's the principium. God gives me and you rights. Government cannot take those away. Specifically, let's go to the First Amendment, the freedom of religion, the freedom to worship, right? You might think, and I've done some digging, you might think about, okay, well, yeah, that just means separation of church and state. Au contraire, meu frère. There's a early Christian church father. His name is Lactantius. This guy, Lactantius. He was the last church father persecuted under Diocletian right before Constantine had the Edict of Milan. Right, the Edict of Milan was 312 A.D. It's when Constantine said, "Okay, Christianity is legal." Constantine, contrary to popular history, did not make Christianity the state religion. Constantine just said Christianity is legal. Before Constantine, a dude named Diocletian, who was a soldier and he killed a bunch of dudes, he was going up to this battle, right? And before they went up to battles, because the Romans were pagan, they would have these people. They would kill a goat. They would rip out the guy's liver. They'd rip out the goat's liver, the sheep's liver, whatever, and they would look at the entrails of the animal. And the entrails of the animal would tell them, "Yep, you're going to win," or "No, you're not." True story. Diocletian going up to a battle, has his guys kill the sheep. The sheep's liver comes out, and they're like, "Oh, we can't tell." So they kill another one. We can't tell. All the livers came up in, not conclusive. So Diocletian's like, WTF, why can't you guys tell me if I'm going to win the battle or not based on that sheep's liver? It's like, why can't you tell me? And then his astrologers or whatever told Diocletian, we can't determine we can't determine the signs of the gods because there's Christians in your court. And so Diocletian's like, what? And he gets really pissed at Christians and he starts killing them all. 1 decade, 10 full years of killing Christians, burning down churches, hunting pastors, burning Bibles, all sorts of stuff. Diocletian, the worst persecution of all Christianity happened during Lactantius's period, his life. Now, Lactantius, for his perspective, wrote, and these are beautiful words, he said, words, not wounds, change hearts. Words, not wounds, change hearts. The concept of religious liberty began with Lactantius. Lactantius was the dude that was so close to Constantine that when Constantine became emperor, Constantine was like, okay, let's legalize Christianity. Not only that, because he won some battle, the Milvian Bridge, but the idea was that the theological background, the first principles, the principium, the theological foundation for your right to worship is long and storied, and many people have died for it. So I don't want to put Jim Jordan down. I'm not trying to insult him at all. I'm trying to bolster his perspective. I'm trying to empower his argument. His argument is not based or determined or decided based on a metric. Do not let scientism, hear me, do not let scientism rob you of what God has given you. God gave you the right to participate in worship. Lactantius would say that worship is not pleasing to God if it's compelled. The reason why you have religious liberty, the reason why you have religious freedom is because Lactantius convinced Constantine, the Roman emperor, he said, don't compel people to worship. Don't say this is legal or that's illegal, because God does not value compelled worship. And so if you think about it from that perspective, the foundation of your First Amendment is not that government can't tell you what to do. It's that you are free to worship how you please, because it's only by freely worshiping are you allowed, it's only by freely worshiping does God accept your worship. So think about how that bolsters this argument against Fauci. Fauci is a scientist with a medical doctorate, and he's doing all sorts of stuff. And he's saying, Jim Jordan's like, well, what's the point that we reopen? Tell me what right is. Tell me what sufficiency is. Which, first of all, that's Jim Jordan granting the opportunity for a learned doctor, scientist, Fauci guy to give him a barometer of what freedom is? Nope. Now, I know this is a rhetorical device by Jim Jordan. He's trying to specify and he's trying to nail down Fauci. But it's the premise I don't like. I don't like granting Fauci the opportunity to have the authority to determine what is and what is not the barometer of freedom. I don't want Fauci to say whenever we have a vaccination rate of 95%. I don't like Fauci being able to have the be able to say whenever 0 people die from it. I do not want to put numbers or metrics or statistics or studies as indicators. I don't want them to be the indexical determinations, the determining factors for my right. God gave me my right. It don't matter if everyone's dying, you can't tell me what to do. Now, with that, there's an understanding that's like, you don't vaccinate the healthy, you don't quarantine the healthy. You can vaccinate people if they want the vaccine, you quarantine people who are sick, but if it's got a 99+% death rate, that's tyranny if you try to lock people down. And that's the idea. That's how these ideas play. But you got to reach back to the foundations to bring those foundations into the sphere today. But see, what I don't like what's going on is these talking points. It's treating someone like Dr. Fauci, who I believe is evil, who I don't agree with at all. And I think he's got the worst for free people. I mean, you heard him say right there. He goes, this is a public health debate. No, it's not. No, it's not. You aren't elected. I have no consent that influences your ability to sit at a table with your chilled bottle of water and speak in the microphone about what millions, hundreds of millions of people should do. You're not accountable to me. I'm an image bearer of God. I'm a citizen of America. I have no method to get you away from that platform. I have no influence on you. You are outside the consent of the American people. So you definitely have zero input on my preference, on my life, on how I understand life, how I worship, how I petition the government, how I assemble, how I do all sorts of stuff. You aren't accountable to me, therefore you do not have power over me. That is the argument whenever people are talking about packing the court. When they're talking about packing the court, what they're doing is they're understanding that politically right meow, the number of people who are conservative are more than the ones that are progressive or liberal or godless commies. And so they're wanting to tilt the scales because that's how the godless commies advance their agenda. But yet, if you had a bunch of Americans that reached back to first principles, they would look at these Supreme Court justices and say, not only can you not rule on this, but if you ever say anything against me, I don't value your opinion. Because if you're judging the qualifications or the fullness or the richness or the potential of God's God-given rights to science or metrics or what this jackass over here has to say at Capitol Hill, you're wrong. Not only do you not have the opportunity to say that or to rule on this, but I'm never going to honor your decision. And this is what I would want people to start thinking. Start asking the question, what's the foundation of my belief? What is the foundation? What's the principium? What's the first principle? I hope that makes sense. More on that to follow. Tomorrow, I will not be doing a live stream because I'm going to be doing the Health and Freedom Festival of America. Appreciate your time. You can find all the links in the description below. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that you and I broke God's law. Jesus paid the fine. Believe that Jesus rose from the grave and he took your place. He took the punishment for you. Believe that, you will go to heaven. Do not believe that, and you will suffer. You will be held accountable for your sin. God is loving. God is merciful. He is also just. He is long-suffering. He is not forever suffering. You will have eternity. It will happen. The choice is, where are you going to spend it? I would like you to spend it with me in eternity, in heaven, hanging out. That'd be cool. It'd be really cool. I don't want anyone to go to hell because hell sucks and it's horrible. Anyway, I appreciate your time. I'm Jarrin Jackson. Now go to war.